Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. My name is Dave Virgili. I am joined by Harman Dial. 3 out of 4 points on the weekend for the Vancouver Canucks. That's a pretty good outcome. We're going to talk about both games. We're going to talk about Patrick Allvin's comments on After Hours. Hell of a job by Scott Oak, by the way. I just want to say that right off the top. That was a great. You don't see interviews like that often in this day and age. So massive shout out to Scott Oak for his work on After Hours. I mean, evergreen statement, but really enjoyed After Hours on Saturday. So we're going to get to all of that. Before we do that, though, I want to give a shout out to our Super Chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Hit us with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Harm, how was the weekend?
It was great. I'm glad that both games were entertaining. This could have easily been a weekend where we're having a much different conversation on the show today. I'm glad that the team was able to bounce back. And I think the biggest trend to keep an eye on over the last handful of games, and it's only a handful of games, so I'm not saying this is necessarily going to last forever, but it is a very positive sign. I remember having a conversation with you before the weekend started about how are the Canucks going to limit the Blue Jackets and Avalanche defensively? Because those teams were 1 and 2 in the league at generating shots. And I think this is really the weekend, and it's an extension of the 2-3 games before that too, where we've seen that, all right, the way that they played well against Columbus and Colorado wasn't necessarily by the stifling defensive structure, although I think all things considered against Colorado, they managed well. It was creating themselves offensively. And so since November 1st, you look at the shot totals in the Canucks' most recent 5 games, 28, 36, 45, and then 33. In that span since November 1st, they've generated the 5th most shots in the NHL per game. I think a massive factor for that has been Quinn Hughes coming back and looking unreal, which we'll touch on. Connor Garland coming back. But even just as a whole, they're transitioning the puck up the ice so much cleaner. They're connecting passes. And I remember when DeBrusk was speaking earlier in the year, a few games into the season, about the team's woes and how many shots they were giving up, but also not really generating anything offensively. The point he made was, we haven't even had a chance really to see what Foot's system looks like, because their passing was so porous and they were so sloppy and shaking off the early season rust that they couldn't even get to trying to play that high tempo, aggressive style. And look, I still think it's an open question mark about whether over the balance of an 82 game regular season, whether opening things up is going to yield success, whether you're going to have enough skill to score consistently. But at least over the last 5 games, if you're going to play a more wide open style, you need to be able to generate a lot. And I think over this weekend, you saw the Canucks definitely getting more looks offensively.
I think that's a great point. And like you said, it goes into a natural conversation about Quinn Hughes, how he's looked since returning. We got to get to notes on Thatcher Demko, which we'll get to later. But I want to talk about Quinn Hughes, and I also want to talk about Elias Pettersson. The shot blocks at the end of the Columbus game are what really stands out. Again, like, dude's diving in front of pucks, looking like prime Chris Tanev out there. And you don't see that all the time. I'm not going to say you don't see that often. You don't see that all the time from star players, and especially for ones that are struggling. And I think maybe this is a hot take. Maybe this is a hot take and people won't like it. But I think what we've learned about this Canucks team is they're going to give you a full effort, and they're not going to take nights off, and they're shorthanded right now. And we know that they're missing some guys, toward the bottom of their lineup, but there's been a lot of opportunities, last night being one of them. You go down 2-0 very early, and what beat you was just that you're completely outmatched when it comes to the level of skill that the Avalanche have compared to what the Canucks have. And they just started to outwork them. They just went back to all they know. Well, not all they know how to do, but all they can really do right now. And that's just outwork the opposition. And I think Elias Pettersson, the stats don't show it. I get that. The stats aren't there. -2 on the night, no points. But he is bringing them into the fight, and he's their only play driving center right now. Low bar when you look at the Canucks' other center depth, but like he's been good. He's been good for this team. I know you want to see more points, as do all of us, but your top of the lineup guys, like even when the points aren't coming for your top of the lineup guys, your highest paid player in Elias Pettersson, but he's putting in the effort that he is right now. And this isn't a conversation about, oh, look at Elias Pettersson and his effort. It's more of a look at the trickle down effect that's going to have when your top of the lineup guys are giving it their all, no matter what's happening to them individually.
Yeah, the one thing you can't say at this point is last year there was some criticism around, oh, it doesn't look like a player that cares, or is he putting his 110% in? Dude is competing and battling his ass off all year, even when the points haven't necessarily been coming. And I think another key in that Colorado game was winning a ton of faceoffs, taking a ton of them, but also he was 62% on the night, I believe. That's massive. And in all situations, I think when you look at the Canucks power play, for example, even before the DeBrusk tying goal on previous opportunities, I think that was maybe the most dangerous the man advantage has looked. They spent such little time regrouping and having trouble with entries. And I think a massive part of that was Pettersson winning draws to get you set up in the first place, as opposed to you lose a draw, puck gets cleared, and all of a sudden now you've got to work through a zone entry. Time is already ticking off the clock. And even on the few occasions when the Avs were able to get it clear, it was so interesting where Pettersson skating up the ice, he didn't have a lot of pace doing it. And you would think, oh, they're coming up the ice, they don't have a lot of speed, but somehow, some way, he was still able to help get them set up. That was really nice to see. And again, there are still signs we're waiting to see from him offensively. I still think there's a bit of a lag in some moments, especially on the power play, where he is shooting the puck, but I think sometimes there's a lag between when he gets it in a scoring position and when he actually decides to shoot. And sometimes that difference, that split second hesitation, can mean the difference between the lane being available and the not being available. But the other parts of his game have been impressive. And I mean, in a really tough assignment against Nathan MacKinnon, I thought he put a hell of an effort in.
There was an interesting quote from Adam Foote on the weekend. I think Tyson Cole's writing about it at Canucks Army, so I don't want to spoil too much, but he was basically asked by Tyson, actually, in the press conference. He was asked by Tyson about changing up the forward lines a bit and switching up the wingers and not going, not to say top heavy, but not putting all, Besser, DeBrusk all together, kind of trying to change up that lineup, change up where Brock's playing on the third line, DeBrusk playing on the second line, Pettersson's on the first line, and just trying to change up the look for the weekend. And what Foote talked about was with how many injuries they have and how the top of their lineup, on paper would be pretty heavy. It's been kind of easy for teams to match up against them. And that was a shift that Foote made. I thought it was an interesting one to make. I think it's just worth mentioning. As we kind of look back on the weekend where the Canucks pick up 3 of 4 points. Did you have anything you want to say on that before I...
Yeah, well, it's easy to do when you get Garland back, and you can stick in with Pettersson and you can bump some of your other wingers down. The other thing I'll say is Evander Kane, I know he off the puck has still had some back checks that you don't love, right? On the first Colorado goal, coming back through the neutral zone, you would have liked to see him move his legs and make sure that he can sort of clog up the slot as that extra layer of support, because I don't think on that first goal, the Canucks initially realized that the Avs had changed and that they had a second layer of support. And I think that's why Quinn and Petey overplayed Makar, who was the puck carrier a little bit. And then that left Hronek exposed. Didn't love Kane's work there, but overall, offensively with the puck, I think he's looked so much better lately. And against the Avs, he had a lot of moments where he was cooking offensively. Early in the season, it felt like plays were just dying on a stick. Couldn't make a pass on the first power play unit. He was single-handedly inhibiting their ability to get set up. But now you see how direct and aggressive he is carrying pucks. And you look at the Linus Karlsson goal, for example. That whole sequence was at the tail end of a Canucks power play. Quinn Hughes sent Kane an entry pass to the left wing. Kane was streaking down. And this was a moment where first I was thinking, is he going to force a low danger, sharp angle shot that's either going to miss the netter or be easy to recover? Kane makes a poised decision to skate it around the net. And then this is where sometimes when you're skating it around the net and you don't have many passing options like Kane in that moment, opposing teams can pick up on the fact that, oh, he's probably going to go low to high, anticipate that, and then pick that off. Kane still made the poise play back up top. And then as the play continued, he zipped another pass east-west. And shortly thereafter, it led to the chaos that Linus Karlsson scored on. That Karlsson goal doesn't happen without Kane's work on that entry, his passing, the build-up work there. There are other moments off the rush too. Just I think on one, he faked a toe drag and then made the move back outside and generated a shot on goal. I think offensively, he's been cooking on that line with Pettersson and Garland, and he's still not a perfect player, and we still saw another offensive zone penalty. But that's another part of when I talk about this team generating more shots and having a more potent offensive attack over the last few games. I think Evander Kane has really rounded into form in terms of his play with the puck.
Yeah, and if that off puck stuff comes as well, you're gonna be really, really happy with the player that you have. And again, as the on the puck with the puck on his stick, because as that improves as well, you're gonna be really, really happy with the player that you have there. Okay. I want to break down the games kind of individually here. We haven't even talked about Quinn Hughes enough yet. There's Linus Karlsson. There's all sorts of stuff to talk about. So as we get into, I was going to call it our opening segment, but it's more like our second segment. This segment, we'll call it that, is brought to you by Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. You can skip the line and not have to pay cover on game nights if you're wearing the home team's gear. And of course, there's also the game day specials at Greta, including $3.33 off select food items, $3.33 for select drinks, and more. With the arcade, bar, and street food menu, Greta's a great spot. Make it your spot to watch the next game. Greta Bar, YVR, 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. All right, a 4-3 win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Again, one where it would have been really easy for the Canucks to go away. Again, they go down in that game. Drew O'Connor scores. Was it Marchenko, I think, that tied it up in the third? Like, it was just back and forth action. It was a solid game from the Canucks, and there was opportunities for them to just, I don't want to use the word give up and make that the baseline of like, oh, they didn't give up, but the resilience. And this is something Adam Foote talked about after the Colorado game, was the resilience. And that's the thing is, if you're a hardworking team, even if you don't have the most skill, like, your fans aren't going to start throwing jerseys on the ice if you're putting in efforts like they've been putting in. And I think that's what people need to understand when you talk about a rebuild. Like, it's not like we're rooting for the players to not have success. Like, that's not what the conversation is. And we're gonna talk about the rebuild and Alvin's comments on after hours. During anyone else, we'll talk about that. But this team's working hard. This team's working really hard, and there's moments where you're just like, yeah, like, good for these players. Good for these players. Good for Quinn Hughes that he's come back and looked like the Quinn Hughes we all know he can be. Good for Elias Pettersson that, even though it's not, the best situation for this team right now, and they don't have the most skill, and that he's not scoring goals the way he wants to, he's not putting up points the way he wants to. Good for him that he's blocking shots at the end of a game. Good for him that he's laying down face first, looking to eat a puck. Like, good for him that he's doing that. Hey, good for Brock Besser that he's scoring the game-winning goal on Hockey Fights Cancer Night. Like, that alone is just the highlight of the Columbus game, if you ask me.
Yeah, in the third period, they outchanced them 11-1 at 5-5, according to Natural Stat Trick. That third period felt like
that was Hughes. That was all Hughes. That was like, he just put the hammer down.
100%. And then, we'll go deeper on Quinn in a little bit, but also Jake DeBrusk heating up over the weekend. His annual November hot streak. It's perfect timing, right? For a Canucks team that doesn't have a lot of offensive weapons. We mentioned it earlier, how previous to this, I don't believe he had a 5-on-5 goal. And even earlier in the week, the 2 5-on-5 points he had, the assists, were both secondary ones. So he didn't even have a 5-on-5 primary point, period, up until very recently. So for him to start heating up, it's exactly what this team needs. And we know when he gets hot, he can rattle off 7 goals in 10 games and have a 4 to 6 week stretch where he's one of the leading goal scorers, not only on this team, but across the entire NHL. And it'd be perfect to get a heater like this when the quality of competition as far as your opponents is really ramping up with the schedule. And again, clutch moment for him in that Colorado game. But that third period against Columbus was an important I think pushback, and it led and kind of set the stage for even the Colorado game where you go down 2-0 early. It's a gut check moment. You know you've got a massive talent deficit and you're staring at a huge hill to climb, and yet they didn't fold, which they could have very easily done.
Let's dive in on Hughes in particular, because again, he was good against Colorado as well. It's a theme for Quinn Hughes since returning from that groin injury, took a few games off. It's a theme. Quinn Hughes is looking like Quinn Hughes again, and it's the skating. It looks like his skating is just back. That extra step in his stride is the big difference maker for me.
Well, I was telling you, the first time they played Nashville, when he was trying to twist away from Evangelista on some kind of regroup, Evangelista caught him with the stick, high sticking penalty, drew one, and yet my take on the show was Quinn Hughes at his best. It like he's already past Evangelista. Evangelista can't even be within a stick length of Quinn Hughes in a moment like that, and just other situations where when the Canucks had pulled their netminder, he's going back for a defensive zone retrieval, and he wasn't able to escape. And that was your biggest sign of, okay, for whatever reason, doesn't quite look physically as right. And I think since coming back from that injury, you've seen the burst back when he's going north-south on zone entries, activating on the rush. But the spinoramas, the way that he's cutting and changing directions in the offensive zone, breaking ankles, it's just a level of sharpness and explosiveness that wasn't there earlier in the season. And I think you're seeing it also in how many shots he's able to get through. That was a topic of discussion earlier in the season that, hey, he's taking a lot of shots, they aren't getting through. I don't think that was so much a case of he's lacking accuracy with the shots. I think it's he wasn't able to create the lanes with the skating as well as he typically does, because we know that opposing teams are going to have all their attention on guarding Quinn and doing their absolute best to limit his time and space. He had 6 shots on goal against the Nashville Predators when he returned to the lineup the second time around. 1 against Chicago, 4 against Columbus, and then 7 against Colorado. So he's just peppering goaltenders, creating a ton of lanes, and the two-way numbers as well. For a large chunk, it was uncharacteristic how the Canucks were giving up more than they were creating with Quinn on the ice at 5-5. Since he's returned from the injury, they've controlled nearly 60% of expected goals. So this is the elite game-breaking version of Quinn that this team has been looking for and frankly needs.
Mark in the chat said, yes, Quinn is back to breaking ankles. B Light 13 in the chat said Hronek is playing great. I think the Hronek aspect of it, we've given him his flowers, but I still don't think it's enough. I don't think we've talked enough about how well Filip Hronek's played this year. This is a great outcome for this team. Again, that contract that he signed, under $8 million, that's looking pretty damn good for a number one right defenseman in the NHL, and he's playing like that right now. Other people are saying to trade Hronek. Hronek's playing really well right now. We'll have those discussions later in the season if people really, really want to. But yeah, Hronek as well is playing really good. And it always is funny to me when they split up Hronek, when they split up Quinn and Phil from playing together, and then immediately they just have to go back to it because they're just so good together. The way they read off of each other, especially when Quinn's at his best and Phil's at his best, which is what we're seeing right now. It's like watching magic on the ice. And again, I pointed it out, but that goal at the end, Quinn is just creating everything. It's all Quinn, and he doesn't get a point for it, which is just so funny to me that, yeah, go on.
I also think, so this is the interesting part. I pointed out the how dominant the underlying numbers have been. Well, in that span, they've been shooting less than 6% with Quinn on the ice. So you can tell there are so many prime opportunities that he's creating where the finishing from his line mates who he's on the ice with hasn't quite been there. And it will improve. Like under 6% is unheard of.
Yeah.
The Canucks are getting goalied when Quinn Hughes is on the ice. So the point totals will reflect it too. I know he's been picking up the odd assist here or there, but he's generated enough chances for himself and his teammates to where he should have had multiple multi-point nights over the last few games.
Yeah, and I said at the end, I think, I'm talking about the Linus Karlsson goal, which is actually the first goal for the Canucks on the night, which we have Shout out to Linus Karlsson. The hands goes between the legs. Jacob, I think we have the clip. Linus Karlsson goes between the legs, roofs it on the power play. And you already talked about that goal, how big that one was with what Kane was doing on the play, what Hronek was doing on the play. And yeah, that was one where it was so much zone time created by Quinn, who stayed out with the second unit, which is always just hilarious to see that Quinn's just going to stay out there with both power play units. He created all of that and then didn't get an assist in the end, which again, it's just, that's like you said, the 6%, that's the way Quinn's season has gone. He's doing a lot right now to create chance for this team. He does pick up the assist on the tying goal, Jake DeBrusk's tying goal, excuse me, on the power play. Did you want to talk about that one at all?
Yeah. This is where, you know how I've been banging the table about how this Canucks power play, the unit one is better with Connor Garland on it than their other options. And again, with the context that we know he doesn't have a very dangerous shot from the perimeter, and in a perfect world on a true cup contending team, he would be a power play 2 guy. But among the options they have, he clearly has been the best option. I think last night, his impact on the power play is a prime example of that, where you watch that goal back and it's Garland's off puck movement to go across to the corner that causes Brent Burns, who's the net front defenseman covering DeBrusk, to shade over to Garland, creates that confusion, and then creates the open lane for DeBrusk to tip that in. You need that kind of movement for it to happen. And so it's those little reads, and even earlier on some of their other power play opportunities, the way Garland was just keeping pucks alive along the half wall, warding off defenders in tight areas where he's under heavy duress, just the level of puck control that he has, poise, keeping plays alive, hitting seams with east-west passes. He's been doing everything other than the having a booming shot that penalty killers have to be afraid of. And again, I think he obviously didn't get an assist on the play for that, but that was massive, and I think went underrated as far as that goal. And I think broadly speaking, the movement against Colorado was encouraging to see, because it's Besser on the left half wall in that spot where normally he's closer to down low, whether it's at the front of the net or in the bumper spot, and you saw movement. You saw guys interchanging, and I think for this Canucks power play right now, they don't have an elite shooting threat from the flanks. Right, Pettersson at his best is that, but we know that's one of the areas where we're still waiting for Pettersson to be that deadly flank shooter, to be automatic, to be no hesitation. And you know that Garland on the other end has a pretty weak shot from distance. So to compensate for that, you got to be a unit that has a lot of puck control and then has a lot of movement to confuse the penalty killers, and therefore sort of attacking the net that way, creating some chaos, because you aren't just gonna, there's no one that you're gonna keep teeing one-timers to, right? You don't have you don't have a Kucherov like magician who's just gonna make plays all by himself. So it's gonna have to be as a unit, reading off of one another, moving off the puck, crisp passing, and then taking what the penalty kill is giving you, which I thought they did well against Colorado.
Smirky McSir in the chat says, "Where's Sammy Salo when you need him? Booming shot. Get that booming shot on the right side." You're absolutely right, Harm. That power play, especially in Colorado, I think it was even noted on the broadcast. I think Ferraro was talking about it. How it's just like they're not scoring yet, but they're going to if they keep this up. And this is what
Henderson
you want
hit
to
the
see.
post on an earlier power play as well. They were in that Besser to DeBrusk. Look, that's a smart strategy that they would have, I'm assuming, talked about it before as, hey, this is a look for us to try and manufacture. Sometimes you got to throw penalty kills, something they haven't really seen before, and come up with a creative idea. They had a nearly identical play like that where Besser had shifted to the flank, DeBrusk was at the net front, and I think it was a second period power play, I want to say, where they nearly scored on that. I think DeBrusk had tipped it just wide. So that DeBrusk goal, the way the sequence happened, it wasn't the first time they looked for that play specifically. That tells me that that was specifically a play they were hunting for. And to me, that's a really encouraging sign as far as strategizing, and this wasn't just a fluke sequence that came to be. This was something that they were intentionally looking for.
Free Petey EP40 fan in the chat. I don't know if you're new here, if you didn't watch last week's shows, or maybe if you're not quite understanding what we're talking about. But he said, y'all get excited with a handful of good periods. And he might be talking to the chat, but he said, I was at the Colorado game. They played amazing, but this team is so outmatched against actual contenders. They eke into the playoffs, sure, but they're nowhere near a cup unless they rebuild. That is what you just said is exactly what we were saying last week. And when I say this is a hardworking team that's easy to root for, I'm not saying, oh, hardworking teams, they win cups. Like, no, there's a way to go, and we're saying if Quinn Hughes wants to extend, you're not going to pitch a rebuild to him. You hopefully keep your first round pick and get a good player, but there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to the rebuild conversation. We're not sitting here saying, oh, everything we said last week is now a moot point because they picked up 3 or 4 points. Yeah, you're right. They were outmatched. They don't have the skill that Colorado has, and Colorado got that skill, that top of the lineup skill, by being bad. Nate McKinnon, Cale Makar, those guys drafted when Colorado had the worst record and the second worst record. Yeah, I don't think we're disagreeing with that. So we'll talk about that because the rebuild stuff is going to happen. We're going to talk about that and anyone else because it got brought up on After Hours. On the game though, Harm, on the game, but as we kind of close out the conversation on the weekend slate of games, I think we need to talk about the penalty kill again. I'm close to needing to pull out the whiteboard again, which people liked last time I did it when I drew up the for the life of me, and I get that Colorado has a top power play, and it's going to be hard for anybody, but the Canucks are so aggressive up high and then way too slow at adapting down low. Because when you're going to play that style, which like a lot of teams, we've seen it a lot in recent years, like the aggressive up high, hell, it's the best way to defend the Canucks power play, right? Is be super aggressive up high. When you do that, you also need to be really sharp at taking away the seam pass. How many backdoor tap-ins? Chicago, there was at least 2. How many backdoor tap-ins have we seen? Like, that can't happen. You have to take away that passing lane. And sometimes, like, there was one last night where Garland nearly got a stick on it, but it still got through. When you're going to play super aggressive up high, you need, and I know I'm saying very, very, very basic stuff right now, but when you're going to be super aggressive up high, which the Canucks clearly want to be, like, you need to be really quick at getting back down low when the puck is snapped down low. And they've really struggled with that aspect of it. And I know it's not that simple. I get it, but man, it is really frustrating right now to watch this PK work, if you can call it that, because they're not taking away the down low pass.
Yeah, and I think this is a great opportunity to transition to the stat of the day,
which
is a presentation of Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats to paper plates and napkins if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip before, during, and after the game, Uber Eats is assisting every hockey fan's experience all season long. Hashtag crave the stats as my dog goes nuts because
Uber Eats got all the dogs barking.
I mean, hey, that might have been my Uber Eats order ringing the bell.
Yep, with his food, right?
Scaring the poor delivery driver.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about that penalty kill because since the second week of the season, it's been clicking at a 61% rate, which isn't just last in the league. It's last by a fair bit. The second worst PK in that time frame is at nearly 67%. And I fully agree with you. A lot of it is the seam passes east-west. Obviously, the number of another doorbell ringing. This is crazy.
That's bad luck. That's bad luck.
But also, so much of it is the absences, right? You lost Pia Suter, who's a first unit PK guy.
Mm-hmm.
You've been without Teddy Bluger, who I saw in the press box last night, by the way, due to injury. That's your entire first unit set of PK forwards. You also traded Dakota Joshua away. Derek Forbert is also injured. You're just missing a ton of personnel right now. And I think that's the biggest issue for them at this point. It is interesting to look at some of the underlying numbers where the shot and expected goals against rates for the PK are well below average, but they're not near the bottom of the league. But the reason they're still getting torched is because it's those east-west passes through the slot. I actually think this PK still does a pretty good job of, when they get clears, making it difficult for opponents to get set up. But the issue is it takes very little zone time for opposing power plays to pick apart the Canucks in zone defense. And again, I don't think it's as simple as, oh, they're too aggressive, therefore you should be passive, because I've said this before. I think
You can't.
most of the top PKs in the league are playing this aggressive style. If you give elite players too much time and space, you just sit back, applying no pressure, they're just gonna pick you apart. And it is especially concerning. I know the Colorado power play, they've got elite level of skill, but before last night's game, they were clicking around 15 to 16%. They were bottom 7 in the league. And I know their power play has been better since they bumped Nichushkin up to the first unit, but as much as you point to the superstar talent they have on that unit, that power play unit was bottom 10 in the NHL heading into that game. It's not as if they were firing on all cylinders, and yet they looked like they were in absolute best case kind of mode. So that has to get cleaned up as soon as possible, because you're not going to win many games moving forward if you got a PK hovering in the 60% range.
We got a super chat that I forgot to get to, so I apologize to Owen Jay-Z, who said, "Screw it, Lanks for Skinner and Nuge or Roslovic." Oh, and then he said, "Just kidding." Okay, I thought we were gonna have to actually break that one down. Thank you for the donation to the BC Mental Health Foundation. Yeah, big questions coming out of Edmonton right now. Not to change the topic too much, but man, oh man, they lose 9-1 to the Colorado Avalanche on home ice. Like, the Oilers were hosting that game, prime time game, Hockey Night in Canada. Everybody's excited about it. Not a good showing for the Oilers. And I think the post-game press conference with Chris Knobloch, he's asked about if the players have confidence, if it's gotten to the point where the players, and I shouldn't quote it, but along the lines of, if the players have confidence in their goaltending. He takes like 7 seconds to answer. Like, he pauses and really thinks about it. And then he says, like, "Oh, I don't think we've gotten to that point yet." He had to think about it. Like, he had to think about it.
Well,
it is a crisis right now.
Did you read Mark Spector's story off that game? I have never seen a hockey writer rip a team the way Mark Spector ripped the Oilers. That was some of the, especially if you're an Oilers hater like most Canucks fans would be, you gotta read that story. My goodness, Mark Spector tore them a new one. It was one of the most scathing stories I've ever seen. And it got
I gotta read it. What's it called? Is it the slumping Oilers full of excuses?
Yes.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hang on. Let's go through the
highlights. That story has so many bars in it. So many lines where I'm like, oh my God.
Oh man, this is good. I'm not going to spoil the whole story. People should go read it. You're right. It is a good piece here. It starts with excuses. That's what we're hearing from an Edmonton Oilers team that lost by 8 on a Saturday night at home.
That's not even a good, that lead doesn't even set the stage for how hard Spector went. He basically said they quit on the goalie. They quit in that game. Calling out guys for like Trent Frederick, and Mangiapane, like just dissecting their quotes and being like, this guy's done nothing since being acquired at the deadline last year. It was unbelievable, Peter.
Wow. Yeah, this is a banger. This is a banger from Spec. One of my favorite things, and I don't really ever do it. I think I did it to Noah Juleson last year. But one of my favorite things is, and I don't do it, I shouldn't say it's my favorite thing. Sometimes it's funny. This one is funny. When you like take a player's quote and you say said player name, who, and then you give your own take on the player. I think that's so funny because Jake Wallman, it's been a tough start to the year for Jake Wallman. We know that. And he goes, this is a Jake Wallman quote. He said, I don't know if we're just thinking that it's going to come easy to us, said defenseman Jake Wallman, who has developed a serious pinching issue this season. And then he continues the quote. I love that. I think that's so funny. That's a great, I love that. I think that's hilarious.
One of the funniest parts was when I think Speck asked Frederick a question about, hey, you're not really like fighting or giving this team a spark. And Frederick's response was basically, I've got 1 point in 15 games. No one wants to fight me. And then sarcastically after the quote, Speck goes, yeah, because usually fighters score 25 goals. Like the first read through, I didn't realize that he was sarcastic. And then I reread that. I'm like, oh, that was a sarcastic shot at Frederick's own quote.
Oh, man.
And then one of the other lines, the fighter won't fight until he scores enough goals. The pest is standing around waiting for his game to fall out of the sky.
This is good. This is great.
Unbelievable stuff.
This isn't anyone else, but we're just going through this Spectre piece. This is great. Yeah. Wow. I don't know, man. What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen with this Edmonton team? We gotta have Bag Milk on the show. Jacob, book Bag Milk.
Thing is, they always crash and hit rock bottom around this time of year.
Yeah, but that's the thing is this one feels different, doesn't it?
Well, I do have more roster concerns with them than before.
Yep. Yeah, the goaltending. Anyway, I don't think Kevin.
Well, even beyond the goaltending, they just don't. People point to the goaltending, and the goaltending sucks, obviously, but I don't think enough people talk about how in the Stanley Cup final, the Florida Panthers could throw out Anton Lundell and Brad Marchand on the third line. Meanwhile, the Oilers had Kasperi Kapanen in their top six.
Yep.
Vasily Podkolzin up there at times. They had Corey Perry on the top line. 50-year-old Corey Perry on the top line. Like, that's an issue too. And it became worse with some of the depth players that the Oilers lost this summer. They're top heavy. And I know in the first 2-3 rounds of playoffs, they had some better than expected depth contributions. But it still feels like McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Nuge, and then a fall off a cliff in terms of their forward depth.
Pickle Rick, regular listener of the show, said, I think Nashville's going to have a sale. The Oilers should inquire about UC Saros. I agree. Man, you know, the Oilers could have had Kevin Lankinen, man. Well, everyone could have, but the Oilers especially, like, they could have had Kevin Lankinen. More people should listen to Kevin Woodley. Kevin Woodley was banging that drum so loudly that free agency period that Kevin Lankinen should get a long-term contract, and the Oilers scoffed at it. More people listen to Kevin
Woodley. They can have him for one Leon Draisaitl.
Well, a couple. Okay, what's your price to be like, okay, we'll trade Kevin Lankinen in division? Oilers give up
something ridiculous.
Two first-round picks. Leon Draisaitl. No, not Leon. No, it's like multiple high picks. Like, would you do it for a first and a second?
I mean, I don't know, because
it's a late first and it's a late.
The thing is with Demco, and having to manage his workload, that's always a massive concern. I don't even think
they wouldn't even play Yuri Patera on back-to-backs.
Yeah, so yeah, imagine this weekend you don't have Kevin Lankinen. You're gonna play Yuri Patera back-to-back.
Yeah, and Ty Young and Nikita Tolopilo are both hurt. Like, the next guy up is Jonathan Lemieux.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's get to anyone else. We've done stat of the day. Yeah, let's get to, we got a super chat. Why do I keep missing the super chats? I have the chat open. All right, Jacob's on top of it though. This is from wait, where was it? Oh yeah, Free PD. Yeah, Free PD EP40 fan. Hilarious name. 279 super chat. He's just clarifying the one from earlier. He said, by y'all, I meant the chat, not you. All right, appreciate it. Thank you for the clarification, and thank you for the donation to the BC Mental Health Foundation. Let's get to anyone else, which is a presentation of Pacific Toyota dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. You can drive up to 72 kilometers on the battery alone, then seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. There's no sacrifices when it comes to horsepower or style with its sleek, low, and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. It's loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. Plug in to recharge at home or at one of the over 2,000 public charging stations in BC alone. And now you can lease a 2025 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $99 weekly at 3.49% APR for 64 months with $3,600 down. and it includes a $3,000 discount. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right. A couple things. Let's start with the Alvins. Actually, let's start with Demco. People want to talk about Demco. I want to keep this conversation short. Thatcher Demco didn't play. The maintenance thing on Friday, if you listen to Friday's show, we were immediately skeptical of it. We're not going to rehash it. We were just like, I laughed when we heard what was said. Irfan Ghaffar came on the show, reported some stuff, gave us some added context. It wasn't a surprise that that Thatcher Demko didn't play this weekend. I don't think there's anything else to say. Hopefully he's able to go on Tuesday.
And hopefully he makes it through the game.
Yes. Yeah. Don't have anything else. Yeah. All right. Let's get to the Alvin stuff. After hours. After the game on Saturday night, Patrick Alvins joined Scott Oak and Ian McIntyre. Good to see IMAC back on the broadcast. IMAC and Scott Oak interviewing Patrick Alvin, and one of the things he was asked about was a rebuild. We're going to play the full clip just to give everybody the context in case you missed it. If you're not watching After Hours, what are you doing? But we're going to give the full context, and then we're going to talk about it. So we're going to play it. It's like 3 minutes long. We're going to play the full clip from Patrick Alvin. Jacob, hit it.
Your fan base, shall we say, restless, concerned the season could be slipping away, and that's when, in this market, the word rebuild comes up. We might have got, 400 questions for you tonight via Twitter, and I think about 75% of them mentioned the word rebuild. We could spend the rest of the time we have with you here tonight trying to get you to say that word, and we probably would not succeed. What is the plan?
Well, if you go back 3 years ago when we got here, we won the division 2 years ago, and we felt very strong that our team was good. Obviously, what happened last year wasn't in the plan with JT Miller, and we had to reverse our plan and get into more in a transition mood here. That being said, we wanted to draft well. We wanted to have young players in the pipeline and develop them down in Abbotsford. We see the young players coming up here right now with Pedersen, Wallinder, Lekkerimäki. There's a couple other guys, Minio, Kudratsev, Ty Mueller down in Abbotsford here that getting a lot of extra minutes down there too. So that being said, we're transitioning our team here as we started the season. I believe as the fifth youngest team when they had the opening night roster, and I believe we're still very young here, and they get the experience absolutely. And I think the plan, obviously, as I said, it absolutely changed a year ago when we parted ways with JT Miller for different reasons.
Surely, though, Patrick, you are aware of the sentiment around town that says you should tear it down and start again. Are you not?
Well, I don't think you could do that when you have good players in Quinn Hughes, Demco, Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser, and then the next wave of young players in Wallinder, Pedersen, Mancini, Lekkerimäki. Very excited to have Braden Coots playing well in Seattle. I think he had a 6-point game tonight against the Giants. But you have Medvedev, the goalie in London Knights. So I think we're prepared well for it. Obviously, you don't want to put young players in a position to fail in the National Hockey League, but I do see a lot of growth. And another guy, Atirada here, getting big minutes and took a key face-off in the end here. He's another guy who's just going to grow.
Again, I mentioned those number of tweets that we got, most of them focusing on rebuild. Here's one from Crispy Canuck who says, don't you think it's important for the team to take a few steps back before moving forward? You've already answered that, but I will ask you this. What do you think when you see teams like Anaheim, Chicago, and San Jose who tore it down and rebuilt ahead of you in the standings?
Yeah, I mean, they were probably in a different process than the Canucks were. I think there is when you have players like Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson and Demco, there is no guarantee you're going to find them in the draft again. Our scouts have done a really good job finding guys outside the first round, and I think that's where we're going to set you up to be successful as you move forward. Same thing finding college free agent player in Max Hassan here, and Arshdeep Bains was a free agent signing out of Red Deer. I think those are credit to our scouting staff, and they will continue to find those players.
All right, we're big fans of Max Hassan on this show. We're not using Max Hassan as a reason not to rebuild. We're gonna gloss over that part because that we're gonna gloss over that part. We're gonna gloss over that part. But I wanted to kind of just go in a little bit on these quotes from Alvin. And hey, like I said at the start, huge credit to Scott Oak for asking the question. Also, shout out to Patrick Alvin for answering the question, right? Like he answered it pretty thoroughly. And I agree with him. I agree with him when you say something like you don't rebuild when you have Quinn Hughes. Like if Quinn Hughes wants to sign an extension after this year, you go all in on Quinn Hughes. Like you do that. But that's the reason that they haven't gone all in just yet, is that when you don't know, it's kind of difficult. It's kind of difficult to game plan for the future, like what direction you're going to go when you don't really know, when you have this variable in Quinn Hughes, what he's going to want to do. So it makes it a little bit difficult. And I get that. And I just want to say, I totally, I appreciate that that's a really tough spot for the organization to be in. Now, that being said, rebuild conversation is more about what happens if Quinn Hughes isn't here. But I'll also give a voice to the people who I don't think are far off when they say, yeah, you have Quinn Hughes, but it's still not enough. Like it hasn't been enough, and it's not enough. And like someone in the chat said, Max Hassan isn't enough to give you that boost, give you that edge. And how many times have I made the joke, Harm, where I said one day we're going to hear, oh, well, you can't rebuild because we have Jonathan Lecker-Mackey. You can't rebuild because we have Tom Vlander. It just happened. It just happened. And what I will say is something Carden in the chat said. It was that good teams have good players, and every team has good players. Even if you're a bad team, you have good players. But if you want to become a great team, sometimes you need to take the step back. And this is the conversation that we're having. And again, when I talk about this next wave, and when Alvin talks about this next wave, other than future Hockey Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer Alexei Medvedev, the goaltender, of course, that he's talking about, like Braden Coots has been a great story, but like his upper ceiling is like a really good second line center. Again, Tom Vlander, is he going to develop into the next Quinn Hughes? No, like those guys typically aren't available in the 10 to 15 range. The guys that you're talking about, aside from Demco, because goalies, you can find a great goalie outside of the top 10. Obviously, I actually, side point, I don't think you should ever draft a goaltender in the top 10. But aside from that, the difference makers that you're talking about, Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, you didn't have draft lottery luck in those years, but you know what you did do? You were bad those years, and you drafted at the top of the lineup, or excuse me, at the top, toward the top of the draft as a result. What I will say is that this idea that, oh, well, a rebuild gives you no guarantees of a Stanley Cup. Yeah, but it gives you a pretty solid indication and a pretty solid baseline of success if you're able to go draft one of these difference makers. And I know there's no guarantee that you're going to get a difference maker, even if you pick in the top 5. But it's definitely something that this team needs to at least have on the horizon, I think, at this juncture.
I think part of it is a frustration about what happened even before this management group came here. And a lot of that is stuff you can't change, but just the lack of accumulation in that time. Because 2 or 3 really high-end players having franchise cornerstones where you got Quinn as your 1D, PD as your 1C, Demco as your starting goaltender, that's a great foundation. That's a good starting point. But as Botch would always say, you need an army. And I think a lot of that, again, just goes back to the mistakes they made in the lead up to this. And as far as for this management regime, what does this mean moving forward? You have to just see how the next couple months play out for this team. Yep. And then that's where you're going to know your direction. And again, I said it last week, huge part of it hinges on Quinn Hughes. And at the deadline or closer to you're probably going to want to have a conversation with him about how he's feeling. And that should dictate some of your decision making at the deadline, where if he tells you, let's say the team continues what they've done lately and they're still in the playoff mix and Quinn's in a mode where he's like, not fully ready to say I'm going to resign, but I'm also not going to tell you I'm out the door. Well, then obviously you're not going to initiate a blow it up
Of course.
rebuild at the deadline. However, on the flip side, if the season goes off the rails a little bit, or even if you're in a spot where you're maybe hanging around the playoff bar, but you don't have an indication that Quinn wants to stay long term, well, then that's where the rebuild talk really begins. And I think to contextualize some of the conversations we were, having on Friday, and I said this multiple times, no one's clamoring that they blow it up right now in this instant. It's, I think, us looking at that situation where, like this season might not, even with a couple wins now, might not go the way they planned. And if that happens, that would be the next course of action, is to embrace a rebuild if you're not in a position to make the playoffs, and if Quinn Hughes doesn't want to stay beyond this season. So we'll see how the next couple months play out. Hopefully, for the franchise's sake, they're able to really build on what's happened over the last 4 or 5 games in terms of their process. And that's going to be the really interesting tell, because as much as we can gush about how well they played against Colorado, one of the best games of the season last year was when Colorado came in and they beat the Avs 3-0 or 3-1, one of their best defensive performances of all season. But the issue was the inconsistency. They had really convincing wins like that over Colorado, over the Florida Panthers, but then they'd follow that up with stinkers against lesser competition. And we'll see. We're less than 20 games in the season. I still have my concerns around this team when you have the center depth that they have. But that's it. We'll just see is the biggest takeaway.
Ricky in the chat, I love this. He said, I respect that media is trying to talk us off a cliff and stay patient until the deadline, but my problem with that is that we are an injury away from losing our only path towards a rebuild. He said, if we know there's no path forward, you've got to protect your assets because things change quickly. Darren W. said, you could rebuild on the fly by trading Quinn. And of course, like we said earlier, that's the thing that makes this so difficult, is like, you're not going to trade Quinn Hughes right now. And you're probably not going to trade him at this deadline unless you get an early answer from him that he's really not signing. But how bothered would Quinn be if you're pestering him in the days leading up to the trade deadline? Be like, are you going to sign? Are you going to sign? When he's not contractually obliged to tell you for a few more months. Like, that might piss him off.
Well,
and then
you don't have to badger him.
Yeah, I'm gone.
But you're going to need to have a conversation with them. I think absolutely management should at least attempt to have the conversation. And if he doesn't have, even him saying, I don't know, is an answer.
Yep.
And it's not you keep badgering. You just need to know, because he's the most important player in this organization. And your future direction should hinge on what way he's leaning with his future.
Yeah. And that's what makes it difficult, is that if the answer is, I don't know, I truly don't know, and he's telling you the truth that he doesn't know just yet, it's like, well, you're not going to trade him then. Like, you're not going to trade him right there. You still have the opportunity to trade him in the off season, right? So anyways, I don't know, the sky's not falling. People, you can pivot. Like, you can pivot. And I will say this as well. Alvin's comments about the next wave, the next young players, and how they're a piece or two away, all that sort of stuff. Like, those young players are going to be really solid, or could be really solid, like, second line players. Like, can Lecker be not a play driving winger, but a solid, like, first line winger where he can finish really well? Can he become that? Maybe. But to get those difference makers, you got to go to the bottom of the top of the draft and the bottom of the standings.
Yeah. The issue is just, they're not necessarily wrong in saying that when you've got some of these young players coming, that in the future years, couple pieces away, but the problem is those couple pieces away are superstars, right? Like, you need more elite talent. Like, you see it with a cup contender like Colorado. How terrifying is it when Nathan MacKinnon steps over the boards and you have to contend with him, where every shift, put it this way, you could have a shift where you're hemmed in your defensive zone the entire time. And so long as you don't allow a screaming grade A chance, you walk away. Even if your line with your best players on it didn't generate anything, you walk away from that going, oh, that was a win for us. Look at how well they defended, right? Who on the opposition, like who are opposing teams saying that about on the Canucks other than Quinn Hughes? Like I'm talking with your forward group. And then that's the firepower where even if the season goes well, in terms of actually contending for a cup, that's what is holding them back. And it's why they're kind of in a tricky spot where a lot of us wonder if they're stuck in the middle for the foreseeable future.
Yep. And it's going to be a conversation we continue to have. I don't want to harp on it. Like, I don't want to harp on it. Someone did point out Alvin is doing the tail end of Jim Benning's 10-year thing where he just starts listing players that he can remember.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Mueller getting mentioned. Yeah, Minio, Kudratsev, Mueller, that was the list. And then Aturatu as well, getting some love. So, again, it's like you said, and there's nothing wrong with Alvin saying that. I will say that. There's nothing wrong with him saying that. It is that the guys that you're still looking for that, hey, we have young players we really like. In Mueller, in Kudratsev, in Minio, that's fine. Like, you can like those players. But it also, at some point, you have to recognize that the guys you're missing are guys that you can only find at the top of the draft, which you said. So I don't think we need to harp on this more. Did you have anything else on the rebuild conversation, on the after hours appearance? Anything else you want to say? Another shout out to Scott Oak, I think is worth it. Like, Scott Oak, what a legend. Really, really appreciated his work on after hours, and I hope everyone else did as well. All right. Oh yeah, and Son in the chat said, got to give you guys credit for the title of today's show. Teams with Drew O'Connor can't rebuild. I feel like we didn't even talk about Drew O'Connor. 7 points in 6 games. My goodness. Drew O'Connor, superstar. You're getting a good outcome from Drew O'Connor, who started the season pretty damn poorly.
Also, just as Kiefer Sherwood starts to, I mean, well, he scored last night. I can't even say that.
Yeah,
it felt like before last night. All right, he's had a few games where he's been a little bit quieter.
Yep.
But then Drew O'Connor goes off, and then, I mean, Sherwood himself capitalizing on that turnover scores too. That goal was so interesting too, because I think the puck was rolling, and it was, especially with O'Connor's forward momentum, it was perfect for him to snap it and get that much elevation over Blackwood's shoulder. I guarantee you, if that puck is flat, that's probably hitting Blackwood in the chest.
You're right.
But that's not to take credit away from O'Connor, because sometimes in those spots where you have a rolling puck, it's so easy to sky it just above the crossbar.
Yeah.
So
or try to settle it and then lose at the handle.
Exactly. So it was a good finish by him. A little bit fortunate with the rolling puck to help him get that much elevation, because we know that naturally he isn't the kind of shooter that can just snap it and get that kind of elevation from that spot. But good to see him rewarded. He's process-wise been building in the right direction for a long time. And then obviously Sherwood as well, capitalizing. That dude just loves scoring goals on home ice, hey?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I love the celebrations. That's what I'm saying, man. Like, when we talk about a rebuild and stuff, we're not like, oh, we hate these players, we hope they don't do well. If Kiefer Sherwood scores 40 goals this year, you will see I shouldn't say that, but Kiefer Sherwood is, what I'm saying is they're easy to root for when there's stuff going on like that, where they're working hard, and when Kiefer Sherwood's embracing it, right? Someone mentioned there was Drew O'Connor chants at the rink last night. You were there. I wasn't at the game.
I'm not sure if I heard those.
It's 4 syllables.
Kiefer Sherwood chants.
Of course. But Drew O'Connor. 4 syllables. People love it.
I mean, maybe I just missed it, but
Dude, that's got to be the first time, if it happened or when it happens. It might happen soon. A loud, undeniable Drew O'Connor chant. That'll be the first time Drew O'Connor has his name chanted, like it was for Kiefer Sherwood too. And I'm pretty sure Garland said it was the first time he's heard his name chanted. So anyway, shout out to Drew O'Connor. Okay, a couple non-Canucks related things that I wanted to get to. 6 points. Well, I guess this isn't non-Canucks related, but 6 points from Braden Coots Saturday night against Vancouver Giants. Named the third star of the game.
No way.
Named the third star with 6 points.
Who were the first 2 stars?
I actually don't know. Hang on, I gotta find it. Jacob, do you know?
I don't, but it is just funny because it's such a junior hockey thing to like have the other team superstar player go off against you and you name him the third star. But it's like Was it in Seattle?
Seattle, though.
Okay,
That's
I thought it was
confusing,
in
though.
Vancouver, which is like, okay, I get it. It's dumb, but I get it. If it was in Seattle, like, I don't know. Did someone have like 3 goals and an assist and they gave him the first star? I don't know.
I know. I'm trying to figure it out. I can't.
I'll look into it. We'll see if I can figure it out by the end of the show.
Look into it by the end of the show. Yeah, that'd be great if you could figure that out. But I wanted to mention this as well. The Vancouver Golden Knights, who I need to stop calling PWHL Vancouver. That's going to take me a bit to get out of the habit of. But the Vancouver Golden Knights training camp started today. Beautiful new scoreboard. They went over the concession items. You got $5 beers. The Coliseum, and I've said this before, the Coliseum is such a great place to watch hockey. I haven't been since the Vancouver Giants. There hasn't been games played there since the Vancouver Giants. The Golden Knights, the only PWHL franchise that is the sole tenant of their building. So if you look at that photo, and for those on the podcast, it's up at CanucksArmy.com. We did a training camp live blog. The Jumbotron looks great. That one needed an upgrade. I don't know if you remember what it used to look like, Harm.
Oh, yeah.
That needed an upgrade for sure. I'm pretty sure there's still a Team 1040 advertisement on the old Jumbotron. That's not even a joke. I'm like 90% sure there was still a Team 1040 banner on the old Jumbotron. So the Golden Knights get all their branding in the building. It's just beautiful. Like it's a beautiful, beautiful place to watch a hockey game at the Coliseum, and they put $6 million in upgrades. The Jumbotron being a part of that as well. Lachlan Irvin was there for Canucks Army, breaking it all down. So if you want to read more about the Golden Knights, you can go to CanucksArmy.com. I've said it before. I cannot wait to watch a game at the Coliseum. One thing that I need to figure out, the triple O's downstairs. People don't know about that. I wonder if that's still there. Did you know that there was 2 triple O's in the Coliseum?
No, I didn't know that.
Before. Yeah, Jacob knows this. Jacob, tell me you know this.
Yes,
okay.
There's the secret second one down.
Yeah, there was a secret second triple O's underneath the concourse where like.
Oh, what?
Yeah, and the thing
wasn't it right underneath the one up top? Like, aren't they stacked on top of each other?
No, so you would
I couldn't remember. It's been a while.
You walked in from the main gate at the Coliseum, like the one you would go if you're at the Peony and you go to Super Dogs. There's the triple O's right there on your left. And then if you go to the right, you go down to the right around the side, like where center ice is, there's a staircase that takes you downstairs. And there was a triple O's there. And it was always dead. That was the funniest thing, was it was always dead. Like, it's like, you would think they put some advertising that it's like, hey, there's another triple O's down here, because for efficiency, you would want people to know that there's 2 and you'd want it spread out evenly. But instead, there's just a bottleneck at the front because you walk in, you see the triple O's. And then there was one just underneath. And I would always go to that one. And man, I miss Vancouver Giants playing there. I miss watching hockey at the Coliseum. I literally cannot wait to go to a Golden Knights game, and just the sounds. I saw Jay Janauer posted a video on Twitter today where he was talking about that it just smells like hockey. I can't wait to get back in the Coliseum, watch a hockey game. It's gonna be great. Yeah. People do know about this triple O's underneath the rink. So hopefully it's still there. We'll figure out if it's still there. That'd just be awesome.
Okay, so I've got the Braden Coots info, by the way. This is funny. So now this must have been changed after the fact, or there might have been a mistake, or might have been a mistake in the arena. But currently, Braden Coots is listed as the first star of the game from his 2-goal, 4-assist performance. But the second and third star are both listed as the same player. Matej Pekar has been listed as the second and third star, with Braden Coots as the first star. So obviously, like. And again, I've worked in junior hockey. I know what it's like. There was probably some 19-year-old intern who was told to put the 3 stars into the system, and there was a mistake. Like it happens. Let's be honest here. Braden Coots is obviously the first star. If you got 2 goals and 4 assists in a game that you win 7-3, you're the first star of that hockey game.
I really thought the story was just, they were the road team, because that's totally a junior hockey thing to happen. It's just, they were the road team, so he's third star. Braden Coots up to 13 points. 13 points on the season for Braden Coots. All right. Anything else from either of you before we wrap up?
No, I'm good.
All right. Let's get to our Bet365. Oh, no show tomorrow. Should say that. No show tomorrow. Remembrance Day. Wear your poppy, folks. And Family Feud. How are we on the survey, Jacob?
Still need more. It's in the description. I'll drop another link directly into the YouTube live chat. Seen a few new faces here today. So we play Family Feud every Thursday on the show, and we need our listeners to go out and fill out the survey. So if you haven't yet, in the description, and I will drop it into the YouTube chat.
And I'm looking for redemption this week. I'm looking for it. All right, Bet365. Bet of the day. The NHL slate tonight. Oh, man. Okay, Harm, I'll just ask you. I'm not going to ask you because I'm not going to... Columbus in Edmonton. Does Edmonton bounce back or does it get worse?
I don't know. I've told you before, I usually don't get vibes takes for individual games.
I do. And Jet Greaves should start for the Jackets tonight. I am a big Jet Greaves fan. My hot take, Jet Greaves, third goaltender, Team Canada at the Olympics. Is that a hot take? Put Jet Greaves on Team Canada.
Wow, okay. That is a hot take, I'd say. I like Jet Greaves. I picked him as a breakout candidate this year. But
Jet Greaves, my boy.
Yeah, I'm curious what they'll do. I mean, you have to send Thompson there.
Yeah, Thompson's your number one.
Bennington's still probably going to be part of...
Yeah, Bennington's Four Nations. You have to make him number 2.
Yeah, and then... I don't know what you do for
Greaves.
third.
Greaves. Jet Greaves. Say it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Think about it. Think about it.
I will say while we're on this topic, just quickly, there was a comment very early in the show from Brimpy Schwingel. Bedard and Celebrini more likely for Team Canada. Yeah. I think you wanted to get to that. I know we're going long. We're
going really long. We're going really long today. I apologize to everyone that doesn't want to hear us talking right now. But Bedard and Celebrini, both of them, like top of the league. You've got Crosby up there as well. You can't. We were talking about, which one of them would you take? You can't leave either of those guys alone.
We'll see, though, because
it's so deep. They're such a deep team.
So CJ and Pierre LeBrun did a piece at The Athletic today about what they're hearing about Team Canada's potential roster plans. The way they wrote that piece made it sound like Celebrini is more likely to make it than Bedard, and that Bedard is still far from a shoo-in.
That's okay, but also, when did that piece come out?
Today.
Darn it. Well, okay, that's old info. I'm going to guess it's old info because Bedard's putting on a show right now. Points with. What I will say about Celebrini, though, it's you and I both agreed last week that it's Celebrini over Bedard. Celebrini is getting the points, but also his two-way game is just better than Bedard's. We've known this for a while, and like if you're going to be playing on the fourth line at the Olympics, that's what you're going to look for. Like you can't be going out there and getting scored on. That can't be happening at the Olympics if you're going to play for Team Canada as a young guy. But man, like I would love.
Bedard keeps it up though. You gotta have both in my opinion.
And even if he doesn't, man, Bedard's going to be on the next team. And I am a fan of getting these guys who are when the Crosbys retire. When Crosby retires, let's leave it at that. Like Bedard is your next face. Celebrini is your next face. It's not an option to leave both of them. It's not. Okay, I don't care about Mark Scheifele, and I like Mark Scheifele. I don't know why I picked him, but you have to bring in this next wave of talent. They need the experience, in my opinion. Even if they're not playing, they need the experience of going to the Olympics, being a part of the program, being a part. That's how you build a culture. That's how you build a culture. And right now, they're very lucky that they have Sidney Crosby to keep that culture up. And you need to pass that culture along. These are going to be your next leaders. Get them both there. For sure, get Celebrini there.
Yeah. And I think Celebrini going to Worlds this past summer and leaving a positive impression on Crosby, that matters a lot. Like, I'll be shocked at this point.
Sir? Was he the one that called him Sir? And then Crosby,
I don't remember.
Mr. Crosby. No, he called him Mr. Crosby. And he's like, it's Sid.
That's so funny.
That's awesome. All right, let's wrap it up. Bet365 bet of the day brought to you by, you guessed it, Bet365. Columbus in Edmonton tonight. Columbus are heavy underdogs at plus 145 odds. We are hammering it. Jet Greaves, baby. Take us there. That's our bet of the day. It is brought to you by Bet365. Wherever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, folks, we will see you on Wednesday. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar, my name is Dave Rugelli. Thanks so much for the episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.